here with 97-kilogram Olympian Kyle Snyder. Kyle, one thing I've been thinking about when I think about the first question I want to ask you is, I remember back 2014 or 15, you were talking about, man, I want to wrestle into my 40s and 5, 6 Olympics and on and on and on. And so you hear that then, you're like 19 or 18 years old, and you think, okay, well, we'll see what he said. And man, every time I hear you talk, you are so consistent in that you just love wrestling. You want to keep wrestling. You talk to a lot of wrestlers, and they're kind of always in that, am I going to continue? Am I going to stop? You're just right there just thinking, I just want to keep going and going. What is it about wrestling that is such a draw to you and such something that you want to do for so long?
That's a good question. I mean, I love wrestling. I love getting better at it. I love the competition aspect. But I think it's just, really just God drawing me to the sport and keeping me motivated and like hungry to compete, and it's just what I feel in my heart. Like I don't feel desire to do anything else and in my life, and it's kind of like it's been that way, like you said, since I was young. 10 years ago I was still thinking this way, and now the vision's like even more clear in my head. Like, back then I think I just was saying that because I wanted to be the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
Like I just want to have the most accolades, and I wanted to be the best ever. But now it's a little more purposeful than that.
Would you say that you still have that goal? Do you want to be the greatest of all time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just competitive, so I mean, I want to be the best. I want to have the most gold medals. I want to have an insurmountable, like, a career that people are like, you're just working to be the second best. You can never catch it. But that's just because I'm competitive, and God's given me the ability to wrestle hard and compete well, and I've done it for a long time, and so I'm thankful for all that. And but there's bigger things too that are important.
Of course. I would say, what is the single biggest contributing factor in your ability to make all these teams in a row since 2015 and come home with a medal every single time? What's the number one contributing factor to that success?
I would say it's my faith, because my faith has kept me humble and kept me focused on the right things, and being open-minded to learning new technique, to going and training at different places, because I'm always asking God, what do you want me to do, and how do you want me to do things? And I've even learned technique through just like prayer, where specific shots I felt like came directly from God. So it's definitely been, that's kind of like the aspect that encompasses everything that I do in my life.
Awesome. Listening to an interview, I think it was at the trials, where you were talking about wrestlers' tactics against you. It's basically wait for Kyle to shoot and try to counter score on him. How have you crafted your training around knowing that basically everyone is using a really similar game plan because they don't want to wrestle hard with you for 6 minutes, which is what you want to do?
Yeah.
How have you adjusted tactically, knowing that that's coming?
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I saw this interview on YouTube. Tazhudinov was talking recently. They were training somewhere, and I sent it to my Russian tutor so I could hear what he was saying. And he said that he was listening to my interview talking about being strategical, and he has something new for me. He's gonna shoot more, is what he said in the interview. Yeah. So it's funny what those guys listen to. They listen to. I think their coaches are really good, and they listen to everything, and they watch us wrestle, and they can see what we're thinking and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of the training is very similar, but just focused on being in the right position, disrupting everything they're doing, and then when I get to the leg, I gotta be in the right position. Like, I have to set up more of my attacks. Like, I can get to people's legs, and but a lot of times I'm not in great position, and when that happens, I can get rolled and things like that. But if I get there in the proper position, I'm strong enough to finish. And also, it's a 6-minute match, so I don't have to score all my points in the first period. I can get them tired first and wear them out, which is what I'm good at, and then score.
Yeah. How aware were you of Tazhudinov going into the World Championship? Because most fans, I mean, myself personally, I was not aware of him, or I was looking beyond. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not a competitor. I'm thinking, all right, Sagelayev's next. So how aware were you?
I was aware.
Yeah.
You know, because first of all, his coach was Sagelayev's coach. So when I saw that, I was like, I know this guy's going to be pretty good. And then I watched a lot of his matches. His matches weren't very telling of who he really was, because like I saw his match versus Batsayev, and like they kind of just were really slow, and it always looked like he was worried about getting tired. But he scrambled well and things like that. So I watched a couple of his matches, and then what really got me was when I got on the mat and actually felt him. Like, he didn't feel like anything. You know, the only thing that felt strong really was his hands.
Really?
Other than that, like, he's very relaxed and makes you want to attack, you know? So that was something that, because when I started moving him and stuff, it was like I can shoot whenever I want. And then I got chest locked, and I'm like, usually in my career, it's like, okay, you're going to get me once, but you're not going to get me multiple times.
Yeah.
I think he's very good in that position. He's a smart wrestler, and he's able to think in a match where a lot of people have one game plan, and if that changes, you know, that's it for them. I think he's a good thinker. He's a good competitor. So just being more prepared for that this time.
Yeah. Of course, the news, Sagelayev not going to be there. What was your reaction to that? Someone you competed against for so long, maybe have a bit of a relationship with.
Yeah.
What was your reaction when you found that out?
You know, it's a bummer. It really, like, as a wrestling fan, too, it's like, I want to see Sidakov and Dake wrestle. You know, I want to see Ugaev and Spencer Lee. I want to see Rashidov and Zayn. You know, like, I want to see those matches. And, I mean, obviously, as a competitor, I want the best guys in the world in my weight class. And that's what's most fun about these tournaments, is wrestling these guys. You don't get to do it very often. So, you know, it stinks. And also, for those guys, like, I know they wanted to compete, so it's tough on them. But nothing we can do about it. So now just obviously get focused on the guys who are going to be there.
Yeah. What were your takeaways? You wrestled Iran, Azerpira. What were your takeaways on that match? Really tight one.
Yeah. You know, he's a good defensive wrestler. He's also like about 6'3", 6'4", and he keeps you away from you, and you know, is gonna block, and just like all the Iranians wrestle a very similar way. So, you know, just having another guy. I haven't had much of a strategy in my wrestling career. Like, a lot of times I'm just going in, I'm like, I'm tougher and stronger, and, you know, like, I'm gonna wrestle harder than you. So that's been my strategy. And now, watching more film and talking with the coaches more, and having some things to focus on that I know are gonna frustrate them, and I think that's gonna help in that match.
Yeah, I believe Tazhudinov's on your side. You can
Yeah.
have him on your side of the bracket, knowing that hey, he's the reigning world champion. I'm likely to have to go through him. How much? And maybe this is even a broader question, but like, how much opponent-specific training do you put in?
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot of. But like you said earlier, you know, when I'm preparing for Tazhudinov, I'm preparing for a lot of guys because they're wrestling a very similar way. You know, even in the weight class, it seems like there's a lot of tall guys in the weight. There's a lot of guys who are good defensive wrestlers. So a lot of those things are kind of just the way the weight's shifted. And so, I mean, in practice, I'm working on things that, you know, are gonna get me prepared for that match. And I'm pumped, like, about the bracket, you know, because the third match of the day, like, that's probably my best match. You know, I mean, once I start getting warm, I feel like I can wrestle forever. So that worked out great in my opinion. And so, Lord willing, we both get there. I want to wrestle him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone wants to see that rematch
Yeah.
again. And when you, after a match like that, where it's like, man, you kind of even didn't get to do the match. It was so quick.
Yeah.
Two or three exchanges and it's over. What's that emotion like? It's not like a last second or 6-minute thing. Is there a little more kind of angst behind it when you lose a match like that?
I mean, losing just stinks, you know.
Yeah.
So, especially like, you don't want to learn lessons at the World Championships. You know, you want to win.
Yeah.
So, but I just knew that that's just, now I know what I need to work on for the whole next year, and even wrestling Ibrahimov the next day before the bronze medal match. You know, he wrestled me the same way, and I've gotten that feel a lot. And you know, it's great having you know, Isaac Trumbull in the weight class, and then Ben Keeter was at camp. Like, there's even more guys in America now who have that type of feel, that are scrambly and you know, tall. Because I don't wrestle a lot of tall guys like that typically. So it's been good to train with them this summer.
Yeah. When I think about you, so much, I have all these vivid memories of international matches, but looking back, you haven't had really a competitive series to make a team since 16 in Varner. What is it like that you have so much separation there at the World, where you look at every other weight class, it's a dogfight for these guys, even the best in the world, to get on the team. But for you, you're just kind of chewing through pretty much all your competition. What is it about you that, you know, that challenge hasn't really presented itself?
Yeah, I mean, there's always the threat though, you know, so like, I'm never relaxed. And you know, Isaac tech fault Colin at the trials. So like, these are good guys. So for me, it's not like some walk in the park where I'm just beating everybody and like it's easy. Like, you know, that's an important competition every year, and it's something that I'm getting ready for, and I'm peaking for that event. And it's the first thing that I think about, you know, when I plan out my calendar for the next year after this Olympics. It'll be the Final X in 2025, and getting ready for that. So, and now we got all these good young guys. Mm-hmm. So I'm just thankful to be at Penn State, where I can wrestle them in the room before we get on the competition mat. You know, it's pretty cool.
That's great. All right, I have one more question for you. I've been asking all the Olympians this. It's about coaching young wrestlers. What would you say the essential skills are to coach a first-year wrestler? And kind of conversely, what are some of the pitfalls that you see in youth coaching today that maybe should be stopped?
Yeah, good question. The thing that I teach, you know, is always the most fundamental aspect of wrestling on your feet is your stance. You know, so if I was going to say something practical for a first-year wrestler, it would be like, we got to be able to get in the right stance, and we're focused on technique. You know, we want to learn the proper position, and we want to be able to do that right and know what that actually means. I think that there might be too much live wrestling, you know, when kids are young, because you just create all these habits that I don't think are great. You know, you're just working on effort rather than actually becoming technically superior than the person you're wrestling. So that would be my advice.
Cool. Thanks, Kyle. Well, hey, really appreciate your time as always. Do you have anything else before we let you get back to your day?
No, appreciate it.
Thank you, Kyle.